Kia ora everybody, Des here from the Good Day Matrix. We're a purpose-led organisation and we're all about wellbeing. We focus on body, mind, identity, community and environment. Today we sat down with Theresa Gattung, who has to be one of the most fiercely generous humans Aotearoa has ever had the privilege of producing. Many years ago, as a budding entrepreneur, Theresa happily gave me her time and her expert advice to support my vision of wellbeing in Aotearoa. Because of that, I've never forgotten her kindness, and I'm always paying that kindness forward. Now, no intro could do her justice. She has countless awards, she's in many halls of fame, and her philanthropy is incredible. But here goes. Theresa has a strong sense of purpose, and she takes it with her throughout her leadership and entrepreneurship journey. Most recently, to name a few things, Theresa is the chair of the board of directors of Tend, chair of AIA New Zealand, chair of Global Women, and a member of the National Advisory Board on the Employment of Women. She successfully led the New Zealand chapter of Kōrero, which was formerly known as SheEO, to achieve its perpetual fund goal. In 2001, she funded the Chair of Women in Entrepreneurship within the University of Auckland Business School and launched the Gattung Foundation. In our kōrero, we talk about how curiosity is underrated, how important it is to give the gift of time, that educating is much more important than our cancel culture, that you must surround yourself with people who don't say yes all the time, and the importance of doing things that bring you joy. So get comfy, and we really hope you enjoy it. Please make sure to share it with your friends and family if you enjoy it, so that it can help us grow in our journey as well. Thank you so much for having us in your home today, Theresa. It is stunning. I'm a little bit of an art mogul, so I'm just in awe of the amazing art that you have around your home. It's seriously beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And today's a sunny day in Telecom, so it feels lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we'll start off with identity and we'll move our way through all of our pillars today. So tell us a bit about your whānau's journey and about how you've got to where you are and who you are.
I'm the eldest of 4 girls of John and Marion Gattung, and they're British. And they got married and came to New Zealand straight away.
Wow.
The honeymoon was a trip out on the boat via Tahiti, and I was conceived on that voyage, to which I attribute my lifelong love of water and swimming.
Yeah.
So they turned up as £10 poms.
Yeah.
They'd signed an agreement saying they wouldn't go back for at least 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But they loved New Zealand and they stayed, and they capitalised the family benefit, to build a house, and had 4 children in quick succession.
Yeah.
So my father was a very intelligent man. He died a couple of years ago, actually, at the end of the first lockdown. And he wasn't able to go to university because no one from his family really did. So he left school quite young. But he became a draftsperson, and in New Zealand he became a town planner.
Wow.
So I was born in Wellington, and then he got a better job in Rotorua when I was 7. So we shifted when I was 7, 6, 5, 4. So my parents were both Catholics, and that life is about more than just your own things for yourself.
Yep.
That was very much sort of the ethos I was brought up with. And I went to a Catholic school in Rotorua, St Mary's Primary, and then McKillop Intermediate and College.
Yep.
And I'm a retired Catholic now, and
I love how you say I am too. That's a great way to say it.
Retired Catholic. The Pope and the patriarchy of the Catholic Church don't sort of really work for me, but the nuns were a great role model. I had a great schooling, seeing women run the show, because in my day they really were nuns.
They really were, yeah.
Seeing them run the show. I did have a bit of a contretemps with the principal when I told her how I thought she should run the assembly. She didn't really take kindly to that, and she actually said to me, she called me into her office, and she said, "Theresa, if you do not keep a still tongue in your head, you will never be happily married." I was so shocked. I didn't know what to say. Oh, a few decades later, I think maybe she had a point. Anyway, I really enjoyed my school years. It was a very small school in Rotorua, but we were still able to study lots of subjects, played hockey, and now Andrew and I, through the Gattung Foundation, actually sponsor students. That school merged with the boys' school next door and became John Paul College, boys' name, but we've now formed my sister taught there as well as went there as a student. She taught there.
Oh, wow.
And now we're sponsoring students from there. So there's a bit of a link. We've got one sister who still lives in Rotorua.
Yeah.
But I love the Bay of Plenty still, but I prefer sort of Tauranga North. I prefer that coastal area. But I still go back to the Bay of Plenty a lot because my mum lives at Waihi Beach and I have a nice house next door. And so that's sort of where we sort of congregate as a family. Dad died there, as I mentioned, a couple of years ago. And, well, we were close as kids. You know, we didn't have much money. I must have been, I don't know, I was at least 7 or 8 before we got a car, walked everywhere.
Wow.
Always loved swimming. It was in the days of swimming lessons at school.
Yep.
And then we joined a club in Rotorua. Mum and Dad were both enthusiastic about that. So it was a very happy upbringing. Yeah. It was before social media. I think social media is really hard, particularly for girls. And I remember it as very, very happy childhood, you know, loving parents and no real, I mean, we wouldn't have been aware of Mum's stresses about money. Like, obviously she worried about money, but we weren't sort of aware of that. Anyway, when they got to Rotorua, she was a seamstress and she started making souvenirs, which I was 15, by 14, 15, at 15, 16, I was selling them into the local tourism industry. So that was sort of the start of my mercantile trading career, but my father was a small-time entrepreneur. Yeah. As soon as he could, he started building properties and renting them out. Wow. So he was always, and in fact he stopped working full-time because of ill health in his late 40s. So he retired quite young, but managed his properties, and you know, we used to call him Johnny Jackup because he actually fixed things himself. So anyway, we had a house at Manatar and spent a lot of time there, and so I love the beach. But I've lived in Wellington most of my life. After leaving Rotorua and going to do a business degree at Waikato, I went back to Wellington and lived there most of the time, and then only shifted to Auckland when we set up MyFoodBag. It just wasn't really possible to come up from Auckland. But also because I wanted to I'd left Telecom at that point, I wanted to spend more time at the beach, and it's much easier to drive from Auckland than it is to drive up from Wellington.
Yeah, is it what? Yeah. That's an amazing, amazing story. And it's, with the Catholic thing, one thing I always say is I still live a lot of the values in terms of kindness and, you know, and all of those different things, but at the same time, there's a lot that doesn't quite fit. But it gives you, I think, I went through Catholic school as well, both primary and secondary, and I think it gives you just a nice start. Now, you're incredibly passionate about women and girls, and what I love from watching you and being parts of the different communities that you're a part of is that you literally call a spade and don't pull punches because things need to be said, and often we sort of hold our tongues or we worry about what we're going to look like in a situation and we don't say it. So talk to us about how you have grown that confidence to do that, but also what's shaped you for that identity piece to do that.
Well, really, I've never suffered from imposter syndrome. So I guess I have grown in confidence, but I've always been a confident person, and that comes back to my parents. But particularly, I mean, both our parents never forced us to do anything, but it was assumed that we would go to university. And so I did go to university, which I went to 2 different universities, a business degree at Waikato and then a law degree at Victoria. And you know, that's a rough and tumble environment. I mean, Victoria was taught with Socratic method. You got called upon by the lecturer and you had to get up and speak. Wow. So you couldn't just hide at the back of the classroom. But even before that, you know, I'd done debating at school, and my father is was a very plain speaking person, very kind person, but very plain speaking. And one of my sisters lives across the road from me here, Angela. We run the Gattung Foundation. She runs the foundation. We set it up together. And we reflect on that we're all quite direct in our communication style, because really that's what we had in our family. We didn't grow up in a situation where someone said something and did something else. There was complete alignment between what someone in the family said and what then happened. And so we tend to believe that other people are being straightforward, and over the decades it's taken me a while to realise that not everyone actually means what they say. Not everyone is straightforward, but that was the personality of my father. Also, I guess being the eldest, you know, you're the first to do things, your sisters look up to you. I'm naturally extroverted. And then when I went to university, I was one of only a few women doing business degree, and law school was more balanced, but I've already explained that in law school the whole thing was you had to speak. And at business school I felt compelled to say things, to point things out, and also I didn't fit there. I was doing business degree, but I was also doing women's studies. And that was, there would be people doing that combination now, but this was 40 years ago. Yeah. There was no one else doing that combination. So to be a feminist and to be a business person, both things I've really been my whole life, was in my 20s quite an uncomfortable place to be, but now actually is quite cool. Yeah. Now actually particularly as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of feminists and corporates and entrepreneurs. So I feel like it's sort of gone full circle.
Yeah, and that's attributed though to trailblazers like you who've taken that step forward, right? Because that doesn't just happen. We see people do it and go, okay, that's okay to do, or she can do it. So that's
I think that's right. Yeah. That's why having female prime ministers, there was quite a gap between, Helen Clark and then Jacinda Ardern. Actually having female prime ministers is important for role modelling. And it's the same, having female CEOs. There are more female CEOs than in my time. There are more female chairs. And that's good because you want a girl growing up in New Zealand to go, look, I can do that. Yep. And the wave that we're in now is, the intersectionality. You want a Māori girl or a Pacifica girl or an Indian girl to also grow up thinking they can do that.
100%.
And, I don't know, we will have a Māori woman Prime Minister. I don't know how long it'll take, but that, you just can't, I think there's quite a wellspring of, all our institutions have to represent the country. Yep. And we've seen it now in Parliament with more than 50% of gender balance, which is great. I'm starting to see in the corporates that I work with a real focus on diversity, not just in gender, that's been there for a while, but also in ethnicity. Yep. And that will get reflected everywhere. Yeah.
It's incredibly positive to think, like, not who's in the room, but who are we representing who's not in the room also, and really trying to not put different hats on, but think, like, what are we missing and what else is needed. I don't know if you've read Ruby Tui's book, but she spoke about that. She got told young that you could be a black fern one day. Yeah. She was like, what's that? Yeah. Because it was nowhere. She didn't know what that was, and so she was kind of like, stop giving me false hope, because...
Well, I've got her book, I haven't read it, but I listened to her speak at the Writers' Festival over the weekend. She was fantastic. Yeah. Her mum's Marion Mowat, who was a friend of mine at MacKillop College in Rotorua. Oh, wow. She's from Rotorua.
Her story, I just read it while we were in the UK, and I cried in public places. And shout out Ruby Tui. She's incredible, just incredible.
She is, and she's a fantastic role model, because she is not just one thing, right? She's proud of her mum, she's proud of her dad. In fact, she just come back from Samoa, and yet she has this effervescent, inclusive energy that brings everyone along. But she herself holds herself to the highest of standards, and that's very inspiring.
Yeah, and that comes through beautifully in her book. Also, there was no. She had to work for everything, and she was prepared to go into people's houses and clean out, rubbish and stuff in order to pay for her university. She's incredible. So we'll move on to body. So are there any daily activities or rituals you do? So when we talk about taking care of our body, it can be sleep or food or moving.
Yes. Yeah. There are many. Yeah. There are many, because I like to be busy and my brain goes all the time. But I think I'm only average at coping with stress. Yeah. Like, some people are very resilient at coping with stress. I mean, I think my mum is very good, but I'm only average. And so I learned reasonably early on that I couldn't do all the things I wanted to do in my life in the world. And one of the reasons I didn't have children is because I can't survive on broken sleep. So for me, 8 hours sleep a night is really non-negotiable. I have to be asleep by 10, so 8 hours, and 2 hours before midnight. I know this sounds a bit rigid, but 8 hours sleep a night. And I think it's taken the health and wellbeing industries and science a long time to catch up to this. When I first went to some spas like a couple of decades ago, it was all about, we wake you up early and you get out there and it's like a boot camp approach. Yep. And then a few years ago it was, well, listen to your body. You might feel like doing that, you might not. But now it's like they don't knock on the door anymore.
No. Because
now sleep's like the number one thing.
Yep.
And I completely agree. On days when I don't have a good sleep, I eat crap.
Yep.
I'm grumpy, you know, so sleep is my number one. That's number one. And my number two is swimming, exercise. I love swimming because it's partly meditative and it's partly exercise. And I do that first thing, like after breakfast. So I've also become in the last few years a complete devotee of Pilates, the breathing, the flexibility, the weight training. I just love it.
Yeah.
So now doing that every week is like once or twice a week is completely non-negotiable. Apart from that, I have to remind myself to drink water. If I don't drink enough water, summer it's easy, but in winter I can feel myself getting dehydrated.
Yep.
My diet's got better over time. I still have a sweet tooth. I'm still a chocoholic, but I really do like vegetables. Like I get my food bag, of course, and so I try and eat less carb because I'm like a carb addict. But I'm not perfect about. I'm not perfect about that. You know, it's like I seldom buy cakes or biscuits, but if I'm offered them, I can't resist them. And after I had my 60th birthday recently, and they made a nice eggless, because I'm allergic to egg, a nice eggless chocolate cake, and I froze it, and I was having a piece a day for weeks.
It's a brilliant strategy, though, isn't it?
So I'm a work in progress on the diet front, but on the exercise front, I do it because I can't not do it.
Yep.
And so that's I would call sleeping and swimming part of the restorative regime. In terms of the sort of the nurturing, they are nurturing as well. I do have rituals around, I try and have a massage at least every 2 weeks.
Yep.
You quite often every week. And, you know, just the way that I take time to put on moisturiser in the mornings after my shower, and the way that I put on a sleep mask at night, just little things like that, to take a moment and to actually put on a nice body cream, to use nice products on your skin, on your body. So little rituals like that I think can be powerful as well.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I mean, have you heard of a guy called Robin Sharma? He's many books, and now I can't think of the book that I'm talking about. Everyday Hero Manifesto, and he talks about that, like having a massage every 2 weeks, like non-negotiable. Obviously, I haven't achieved that yet, but you know, like all these different things, and actually including them as what he calls part of your team. So you know, all of those people are part of restoring and nurturing and preparing you to be able to take on the day and take on the world, and and get enough sleep, etc. So it's incredibly important. So you are one of the busiest people probably I have met. So how do you maintain all of those things while you have so much on your plate?
Because I had the most wonderful assistant, Chris Woodwis.
She is.
Who lives in Nelson, so we don't see as much of each other as I'd like, but we've been working together for 30 years, and she knows my mind before I've even articulated the thought, sometimes before I've thought about it, like it's happening. And I don't know how you manage a portfolio life without somebody, because she really helps me with my whole life, not just my work life. I feel like having someone else who can say no for you to things you don't want to do, and having someone who can organise the things you do want to do, frees me up to do the things that I like to do and that I'm good at doing. It's, you know, my gift to the world. So that's the very first thing. The second thing is I am quite good at multitasking. You know, I will finish this interview with you, I will immediately go upstairs and hop on a Zoom call about a business, and I know exactly what I'm saying on that call, and what, you know, how that, I don't know how it's going to go because I don't know what decision we're going to make, but I'm already mentally prepared for it. I'm quite structured in my life. You know, I had my dresses hang in one place and, you know, trousers in another. I'm quite structured about things like that, so that I don't spend a lot of time looking for my car keys or, you know, doing some of those. I don't really procrastinate on decisions. I make them as fast as I can. When emails come in, I reply or I send them off to Chris with an instruction. I try and move things through, and so that they don't sort of clog up thinking time with things that, you know, should only have taken 10 seconds to think about.
Which is, I do that in the night before now. I prepare what I'm going to wear just, it sounds ridiculous, but I just get my clothes out because then I don't stand there for 5 minutes
I
going,
quite often do that too.
what do I feel like wearing today? And is it that? No. Yeah. So it's like decision made, go shower and get ready. Seems silly, but it's, you know. So we'll move on to mind. Now you have an amazing mind, and I heard you talk a while ago, I can't remember, it might have been at SheEO, but it was talking about that you're an accidental founder, obviously with MyFoodBag.
Yes.
But you still have an amazing mind that can see things well into the future, and I'm just so intrigued. How do you keep your mind in that state to see above and to be so creative with your thinking and to see opportunities?
Well, I have a broad range of friends and acquaintances. I mean, I had, I don't know, 80 people who loved me at my 60th, and we go back years, decades. I read voraciously, at least a book a week. My very good friend Barbara Gabler, who lives up north, and she came down and stayed with me. We went to 9 events over the weekend at the Writers' Festival. It was stunning.
I wanted to be there.
3 Booker Prize winners. The festival this year was amazing. You know, 3 Booker Prize winners. Just so many fantastic authors, writers, and the session that Hanimoa Elder was on about 1,000 years forward, 1,000 years back. You know, you go into that and you understand so much more about this country and what we should all be signing up for to make Aotearoa New Zealand the best place it can be, and just you feel into that, and then you have the world's best thinkers there on stage, and it's just, I've always been curious. So right back at school, I mentioned I did extra subjects in School C, and then I've already mentioned to you that at university I did languages as well. I did, you know, lots of different things, and so I've always been interested in lots of things. I've always read, I've always, you know, pursued different interests, and I think that's then, because entrepreneurs are naturally curious and they see something that didn't go together before that could go together and make something better. And that I am actually quite wired that way. But I also have I don't now, but I used to have quite a need for power, which is a characteristic of CEOs, right? So I think the timing of, you know, the rise of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, I became an accidental entrepreneur. If I had my time again, you know, if I was young again now, I probably would go and work for an entrepreneur first. But on the other hand, corporates give you a really good grounding in things. So I don't dismiss that as a career path too. It suits some people, but now I couldn't have a boss. So now I have to work for myself.
That I love your story, and that curiosity. I mean, that's the stuff that I think that's the quality or the innateness that sometimes that's where people fall off on sort of their wellbeing journeys, or just, you know, we kind of get in that hamster wheel and go, oh, well, this is it. And don't sort of look out and wide and see what else could be in your journey if you got curious about those different things.
I think curiosity is a bit of an underrated virtue. I think resilience and determination are really important. We were talking about that before in relation to Ruby Tui. But curiosity is actually, as you say, it's that's what's to shift through things in life. You don't want to get stuck. And so being curious about what's next, whether that's the next relationship or the next venture, the next house you're going to do up or live in, or the next person you're going to meet, that's what keeps life sort of fresh and interesting, to balance the things that you know. I mean, I don't drink. I don't like alcohol. I just don't like it. So I'm probably not going to be curious about the next alcoholic beverage. So, you know, you got to, as you get older, you do know some things which are complete non-negotiables, like smoking or drinking, whatever. But the world there's so many different ways to live. There's so many different things to know about, read about, to see, to experience, to give yourself over to thinking, okay, well, I'm in this phase of my life, whether that's children or a business startup, and this too shall pass. Whether you're loving that or whether you're hating it, it will pass. And it's hard for me to be curious if I'm in pain, like the times in my life when I've had physical, but even then, the year I had my sort of, you know, physical, emotional, physical breakdown, 218, that was interesting too in its own way. And one of the interesting things about that was when I wasn't going at my normal fast pace, some people who I would have normally found too slow were actually quite accessible to me. And I was accessible to them. And so, you know, there is something to be learned about every experience that you have to mine it for, you know, what might come next.
I'm currently reading The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist.
It's a great book.
I'm only halfway through it, and I'm just like, when do I find time to get through you? Because it's stunning. But I love that she talked about this cycle we get into of not enough. And not enough money, not enough time, not enough, not enough whatever. And we worry about providing for our families or ourselves. And what is the next generation going to look like if we've not got enough? And we get trapped. And so we don't look out and we don't get curious because we're just so stuck. And it's this innate thing that's come from generation after generation.
Well, money in particular has a lot of scarcity attached to it and fear in our culture.
Yeah.
Jealousy, envy of those who've made it, fear of not having enough, worry, concern, and it's got this angst around it. My father just had both my parents, but particularly my father, I think, the most brilliant attitude to money, that there's enough for all of us and that you can always create more. What you need, you can create it. That I was inspired by my best friend who settled out of cancer a few years ago. She was very generous at giving money away, and so I thought I got brought up with really good values about creating money, and I got inspired by the very generous woman in terms of what good you could do giving it away. And the Lynn Twist book talks about both, of course. And I now believe that, in fact, giving it away is part of making it as well, because it keeps money as currency, keeping it circulating. And most people think money is a certain stock, a certain store, and once it's gone, it's gone. And I think that money is a flow. And if you think about it as a flow and you trust the flow of life, then I know that this can be hard, depends on the upbringing that you had, but that can actually help just sort of, it's like, money doesn't have to be the in-breath. It can be the out-breath. It can be, I use my money for good in the world. I also use it to bring me pleasure and to drive a nice car and to be able to go to a spa in Asia that I know will be good for my mental and physical health. And money is neutral. Money is not positive. Money is not negative. And our culture at this point in time has lots of judgments about money, and it's not helpful.
It's a great message around wellbeing for people to try and understand their relationship with money, I think. And the scarcity thing is a long myth that we need to manage. So we'll move into community. So we talk about community, and often people think that community is just like a rugby club or, but it can be anything. It can be just a group of women that get together. It could be a knitting group, a book club, anywhere where you can feel like you can contribute and be part of something and belong. So tell us about some of the groups that you're a part of.
Well, I'm part of many communities. Obviously, I'm part of my family. We've just instituted this thing this year, my 3 sisters and my mother and I, that we're giving each other for our birthdays the gift of time, because none of us need anything materially. So the person who has the birthday gets to say what they want to do for that whole 24 hours. So for me, my 61st birthday, which was recent, they took me to my favourite restaurant near where we live at the beach, and we played games, we played cards, they cooked my favourite foods. And next is my mother's birthday, and so she's planning what she wants to do with her 24 hours. And so that's my first community. My community is my family. My second community is my really close friends. Like, we have the same, one of my friends, the one I was talking to on the phone when you came in, we go to the same Pilates instructor. We have the same doctor. We like the same fashion designers. We go, it's sort of like, so it's like I have communities of friends, the ones who do the book things and the ones who do other things. And then I have work communities. Celia James Robinson, set up MyFoodBag, and now we're Tend Health, we're working on that together. So I have communities that intersect with money because that's just how my life has gone. Communities within the Gattung Foundation because of the different programs we're running, and one of those is the SPCA, which is a charity that I've supported both with time and money my whole life since my first paycheck. So I have lots of intersecting communities.
How do you, you're a leader in a lot of those communities as well, so how do you foster belonging within those communities for all of the people that are a part of it?
Well, I try not to get involved in communities where I don't respect everyone who's part of it, and sometimes I'm a leader, sometimes I'm a follower. It seems effortless if you're really doing something from the heart, and they are too. It seems effortless. It doesn't seem like work to do that.
And just sitting here with you now, even, it's just authentic. Like there's no written notes or, like no set script. It's just genuine, authentic. And I mean, you gave me time for a phone call like a couple of years ago, and you gave me a good hour of your time, and it was just kind, genuine, like, yeah, sure, I'm driving back from this place to this place, I'll give you a bell. And it was just, that kind of kindness is never ever forgotten by anybody. And you may not hear how, things go afterwards, but that person then goes, who else can I help? Because this person...
Did I give you good advice?
You gave me great advice. We're still going.
That's good.
You gave me great advice. Yeah, but it's those moments, I think, even if we're not part of a community as such, that you have given me some of your time, that I'll then ensure I double that and go to somebody else and help somebody else.
I used to think that only big things mattered, big ideas, big interventions. I've come to understand, as you say, that sometimes the little things can be life-changing for that person or that group of people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, just that time and that wisdom that you may not be able to find anywhere else. It's not even wisdom, it could just be someone listening to you for an hour sometimes. Have a good kōrero. So with the foundation, you have 5 care causes and you support a lot of groups. So talk to us about talk to us about the care causes and some of the groups that you guys support, and is there anything people can be doing to help?
Well, the first thing is, Andrew and I want to do this as a legacy thing. So we want to do things that are authentic for us and for our families, and so animals first of all. This is the first time since I bought a house, a little cottage, when I got a few years after when I was 25. So I've been working for 4 years, and my partner and I bought a cottage in Wellington. And a cat came with the house the first time I left them. This last few months, since my last cat died, has been the first time I haven't had a pet for all that time. So we're a family that loves animals. My sisters have all got dogs, and so animals are an obvious care cause. I've been supporting the SPCA since I was my first paycheck, forever. And not just with money, but also with bringing all the centres together, using my skills and time to, try and get that across the line, which we did. And if we hadn't done that in lockdown, it would have been impossible. I think it would have been really impossible for the animals. So animals, and honestly, with animals, it's like we with the animals, we've gone for we did go to the SPCA and say, what is it you most need? And they said a truck, a vehicle for the far north. Because they're, that does it covers miles, and they've to have proper cages and all those sorts of things. And the vehicle they had up there, like completely end of life. And so we spent a good amount of money with the SPCA last year. So there's a truck going around the far north saying Gattung Foundation. But apart from that, mainly with the animal charities, we've given a little bit to lots. Because there's so many, whether it's the big bird centre in Rotorua, or whether it's, spaying, neutering animals, or whether it's, I used to ride horses, and horses are a passion of mine, and horses are expensive to keep, right? And so quite a few horse charities, including some that are working with troubled women, which brings together 2 of my interests. So Andrew and I basically wanted to do things that we both care about. And she comes from an education background, and so obviously animals, and then supporting women and girls who haven't had the advantages that we've had, particularly in a New Zealand context, in an Auckland context, Māori and Pacifica girls. And so she's used her networks and contacts and her mahi and to either create programs or coordinate programs that advance that. So one example of that is she's shortly going over to Gisborne, and we've got a collab going over there started with one kura, one school, and the girls wanted to learn robotics but didn't have the funding. And so we funded them to learn robotics and then go to the National Champs in Lower Hutt, where they got the Judges Commendation Award. And now we're now extended that to 10 kura. So can you imagine, from one of the most underprivileged parts of New Zealand, beset with the weather issues more recently, can you imagine these girls learning te reo, fluent in te reo, standing in their power? If they're from that area, they'd be Ngāti Porou, and cutting edge STEM, what that might do for our country if we do this program for several years. So, I mean, that's an example. So we sort of operate at both ends of the spectrum. We do that. We do a lot of work inspiring girls at that point of transition. But we're also working with Papakura, Kautuituiki Papakura, with a project now, mentoring some of the girls who left in lockdown, didn't go into education or work, trying to recover them, because if they don't get recovered, that's a bad intervention in their life, right? So we do things that are ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. We do things that are, inspiring. We try and actually go, okay, how can we help? We actually support Middlemore Foundation. First Foundation, so we sponsor girls within existing programs, because there's lots of organisations doing things, but we also co-create programs as well. So I could go on and on, but we've got lots of programs underway, quite a few multi-year streams, and some that are one-offs.
Well, that is an incredible legacy for you both. That's amazing. That's changing the game.
We hope so. Yeah.
That's don't know what else to say but that. Now, I recently read Melinda Gates' book, Moments That Lift Us. Yeah. Again, it was another book that was so flooring in so many parts. But there was a part where she says, we have to use our power to bring people in. And I truly believe in everything you do that you are bringing people in. And if they're not there, you're aware that they're not there, and you're thinking, how else can we get people here to be part of this? So what should people be thinking, whether it's in businesses, whether it's in community groups? How can we be thinking about it and taking action, not just thinking about it, to bring women in authentically and really start to change the game and raise the bar? Yeah.
Well, I am doing that in many different ways, both at the charitable level and at the top corporate level, because I'm chair of Global Women, and we're working with 60 corporate partners and 400 members, and unfortunately we had to cancel our hui, which was going to be in the treaty grounds because of the bad weather, the road shut. But the theme of that hui, when we have it, is co-creating Aotearoa 2040. 200 years since the treaty was signed, and 150 years since women won the right to vote. And there's something that feels completely right about a group of Pākehā women and Wahine Māori doing this together, because of course Māori women and Pākehā women got the vote on the same day, which didn't happen in lots of other countries in the world. And yet there's no evidence that Māori suffragists and Pākehā suffragists ever met, because Mary lived up in the Hokianga and Kate lived down in Christchurch. So, this is a world in which it takes weeks to get from those two parts of the country. It's not a quick plane trip to Auckland and then, quick trip.
Pick your phone up.
Well, that's right. So, I totally believe in the power of women to change outcomes, and the power of women collectively to see possibility. So, however that works for you. Could start with a book club. It could start with a community group, your neighbours, your immediate neighbours. I don't like to sort of preach. I do what comes to me, because I've got a natural business brain. I like to create things. I like to spread across a few different dimensions at the same time. Not everyone can do that because they've got kids or wants to do that. But first of all, never giving up, believing that anything is possible, and doing whatever is your gift, whatever feels is your gift to bring about positive action and change.
And that means you're acting within yourself, right? And within those values to be authentic.
I mean, it might be baking. I'm not a cook, right? It's like everybody's got a gift, and understanding I'm not really good on working on one's weaknesses. I think it's good to understand your strengths and weaknesses, but then you should give your gift to the world and surround yourself with people who have your weakness as their gift.
Love it. I'm just in awe. Right, we'll move to environment. So when we talk about environment, we can talk about any parts. We can do sustainability, and we can do home environment and work environments, but because you're such a force, I think it would be wrong not to talk about leadership and inclusion within environments and that environment that you're creating around yourself when you're in those environments. So talk to us about sort of your non-negotiable values that you hold in any space that you're in.
Well, a commitment to gender diversity and a commitment to learning in terms of te ao Māori. I really don't hang out with anyone who's a redneck, and because I'm a wealthy white businesswoman, that's one identity. It's just one dimension. But because it's the most public one, I often get people who assume that I share their views. and they get quite a shock if they say something like, oh, the Maorification of New Zealand's gone too far. And I say, well, what do you mean? Genocide was too much? Yeah. So it's like that we can all do that, you know. We can. So I don't hang out with people who, I don't really like cancel culture. I do think educate's better.
Yep.
But it's like what you said before. I feel like I don't know if I am at the extreme of seeing the future and what it might be, but I think I'm on that side. And I like to work with people who are there or in the middle.
Yep.
I don't really like to work with people who just like the way the world that used to be and can't see the possibility of it of it being different. So I don't have to. I'm not surrounded by people who totally always agree with me. Like I don't mind people being, you know, in different places on different things, but I don't like to be with people whose mindset is fixed in a way that I'm just never going to find them able to have an interesting conversation over dinner.
Yeah, and that's that struggle, right? We interviewed Sasha Coburn, who's an amazing businesswoman and leader as well, and she said the same. She's like, you give it a couple of times and you try and help educate them in the conversation, then you kind of go, I don't want to spend time with you anymore. You know, like you get to that point, and it is about choosing where your energy is best spent, and it's not banging your head against a wall when, you know, but you do your best to try and be like, hey, there are other ways now that the world is going. You want to come?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be great. And, it, you know, so much has changed, but we're still so far, if that makes sense as I say that out loud. Cause
I think this session, 1,000 years, 40,000 years back, was about, you know, Indigenous wisdom.
Yeah.
Because it had an Aboriginal woman as well as an female elder. And, you know, the intersection of feminist and Indigenous wisdom can propel the world forward. Yeah. But that requires white women to stand back to allow Māori women to lead and to speak. And a lot of fantastically talented Māori women are doing double duty because they're doing it in their own iwis, and now we've got Pākehā women saying, will you help coach us into rate? You know what I mean? It's like, and we've got to be really careful about cultural ask. Oh, you're Māori, you can do the karakia. So, you know, taking it upon ourselves to have our pronunciation be good enough that we can do that proudly in front of Māori and not feel embarrassed is something that any leader in an institution in New Zealand should take upon themselves. They shouldn't be dialing up someone from next door to come and do that. So little things like that are going to start being non-negotiables, I think, and not all leaders are up for it.
You're dead right. Like, people should know their mihi. Even being a very white person, you know, I know my mihi and I know taupiri is my maunga, but I can stand up and confidently say my mihi. And so when I lead meetings now, or when I go in to do leadership work, I absolutely try to ensure that we start it right. So is there a karakia? And if that's happened, you know, that I thank them in Te Reo Māori for the karakia that they've given, and just trying to really respect as much as I can because I'm a qualified early childhood teacher. So for the 3 years we studied Māori alongside of everything that we were doing. So, you know, it's important, and if people don't know, then, you know, how can we help them go and learn so that they can bring that into meetings and bring that inclusion as well.
Karakia is interesting because often you can feel at an energetic level that it's opening up the portal for a better conversation if it's done with integrity. So it's like if people could even think of the possibility that it could be better for all of us at the end of this. It's back to this, is it a stock or is it a flow? Energy is a flow, life is a flow, it's always moving. But if you think it's a stock, then if you're currently an older white male, you might feel like, you know, you're not having your moment in the sun. But in fact, if you see that everyone is valuable and valued, and that there's things that that any individual can contribute, then you could look at it differently. You could be very proud of New Zealand being early to do treaty settlements and early to, you know, seriously support the Maori reclamation of their language. And so you can reframe these ideas, and ultimately that comes back to wellbeing, because 100%. There's plenty of literature and plenty of academics and plenty of real life examples that colonisation led to, you know, much worse health statistics. And that is reversible if we had a collective intent.
I was recently reading the study that the New Zealand government put out about our wellbeing, and the stats for Asian whānau, for our Māori whānau in Pacific was just ridiculous when it shows you the what's going well, what's not going well, what's in dire, and you're like, how are we, what's being done, and lots is being done, but we need to do better. So our last section we talk about is what we call portion distortion, and we talk about it with everybody, and we don't think it matters what age you are, what lifestyle you live, what job you have, what family life looks like, that we all struggle with time, and just in different ways. So talk to us about some challenges you've faced over the years with time, and if there's any solutions that have worked, or if there's anything you're still working on.
I don't feel like I do struggle with time.
Yeah?
Some days I actually ask for time to be stretched.
Wow.
To be able to do everything I need to do.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself that there is enough time.
Yeah.
So, rushing from the pool and slipping on the steps would not be it. It's not a great. In the little things, I have to take a breath and slow down enough and go, yes, I actually, having a new car to drive is helpful because I don't want to race around in that car. Like I want to, I don't want to get it, I don't want to hit something in that car, even if it's, a curb.
Yep.
No, I don't. I feel like I've got enough time the rest of my life to do what I want to do. I feel like I've got enough time this week to, so even if you looked at my diary and you'd think, well, yes, every hour is counted for, I don't feel really, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be asleep by 10 o'clock tonight, and I'm going to be able to do what I intend to do for the next couple of days, hop on that plane on Friday and go away for a week's rest and holiday. So I think I've struggled with time in the past when there have been other people's deadlines. Like obviously when you're a CEO, you've got some things you can't shift, right? You've got quarterly announcements, you've got board meetings, etc. I think that was the most stressful. Being a CEO of a large company for me was stressful. But now my life is, I'm essentially a volunteer in all I do.
Yeah.
I create my own calendar, my own day, fits around the rhythms I've mentioned, the start and the end. And I get stressed really, I guess, when something unfortunate comes up that throws things out of kilter. That makes me then feel, oh, well, I've got to do this and I'm going to do that. And I don't always achieve it because if a new problem comes up, I want to solve it straight away. I don't, like I said to you before, I don't procrastinate. I absolutely don't procrastinate. And so if a problem comes up that I could solve, but I haven't got time to solve it, that can cause its own degree of stress. So is that a problem with time? I think that's my own reaction to not being disciplined enough just to park and focus on the thing in front of me. But I don't feel like I'm rushing in a way that is, not conducive to physical or mental well-being, and I don't feel like I have got a strained relationship with time.
No, I think you've nailed it though, because you just talked about so many strategies just in that block there of things you've put in place, like being mindful, to slow down, to not run from the pool to inside, like all those things. That's learnt stuff. You probably would have done it prior and then gone, I don't want to do that anymore.
Stuff.
So those are strategies and awareness, I guess, of how you use your time, which is...
Well, I got knocked down outside the pool in Wellington, going back to my apartment. Didn't see the car. It was a crossing.
Oh
so
my God.
Anyway, my point is that I don't think that would happen today.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing and powerful. So why do you think it's so important to make time for things that bring you joy?
Because that's how we renew our spirit. So it's important to understand whether you're an extrovert who gets renewed by being in the external world, as I do, or whether you're an introvert who needs to read or be by yourself or gets renewed, finds interviews. I enjoy them, but introverts find them a performance, they find them a challenge. So you do need to understand that by yourself. I do need to be, although I'm an extrovert, I do need to be in nature. I much prefer swimming in outdoor pools than indoor pools. I like the Bay of Plenty because I like the mixture of the bush and the sea, that being so accessible. Some people love the mountains, that's why they choose to live down south. So understanding what parts of nature nurture you and making sure that you do that's important. Understanding how you get renewed as an extrovert or introvert, that's important. But inspired means in spirit. to be inspired and to be inspiring, you have to be in spirit. So you have to nurture your spirit, and you nurture your spirit by what's important to you. It might be creativity. Some people, my sister Angela likes knitting. Can't do that. But I am creative in my own way. I like fashion. I think that's a creative thing. I should definitely be proudly. I hope she invites me. Kerry Nathan's leading Fashion Week this year.
Yes, she is.
And I went to a Fashion Week show I love her clothes, but I went to a Fashion Week show a few years ago, and the wairoa of the Wahine Māori who were wearing her clothes was amazing. And so that's because she's inspired and inspiring. She's in spirit. And you can tell if someone is, renewing their spirit and doing something in accordance with their gift and their spirit.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see those women. I was at the CEO launch at Eden Park when she spoke.
Yes.
And I didn't know enough of her story at that stage, and I just sat there in awe of her talking and the things that she's come through, and then what she's trying to do for the world now and for Māori designers is just
exactly.
stunning.
And you see that reciprocity in action, the Kahui Collective and the paying it forward, the supporting other Māori designers, the circularity of that. I think, there was a story today, Mackenzie Bezos has just given a big amount of money for maternal health in the third world. And I think we live in a time where the most admired people are not the richest. They're people who have been successful and are then trying to do something with that. And I think that's a shift. I think that's a shift. I think, as you said in the beginning, it's hard to have had a year's worth of rain in Auckland in 5 months and not think something's happened with the climate, right? So the problems are pressing. What Shio is trying to do is fund women who are working on new ways to deal with it. Yeah. And that's obviously what Andrew and I are trying to do in the foundation as well. But overall in my life, I'm trying to do things that really matter. Completely different way of doing health.
Is it what? Yeah.
A sector that we all can benefit from. Yeah. It being more efficient, it being more patient-centred, etc. And I like putting time and effort into things that can make a big difference.
Yeah. And that's a shout out to Cecilia actually, because I love following her social media. So when she does hers, she did an amazing article about the $5 prescription situation. Yes. And if you're not informed, she will inform you. Yes. And she'll make it really easy to understand for anybody who doesn't understand the importance that's sitting there and the difference that it makes. Yeah. But I just love that she is advocating and she's out there. And
the one before her column on nurses on International Nurses Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stunning, yeah.
Because the times when I've been in hospital, it's the nurses. Yep. It's the nurses who are actually caring for you and giving you putting in the IV lines. And I'm not to say you don't need good doctors and specialists, of course you do. Yeah. But, we need nurses feeling valued.
Yep, they keep the ship running and they keep it safe and they keep, they're the ones who take care of our waiora when we're there. So we'll move into some quick fire questions to finish us off. So if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To live for a very long time. Yeah.
I like that. What was your first job?
My first job was selling my mother's souvenirs, to hotels in Rotorua and shops. Yeah,
they must have loved when they saw you coming in. Here she comes. What are some of your favourite books?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. How long's a piece of string?
Well, in a way, I feel disloyal to some authors by mentioning others. But the book that I've just finished reading that I absolutely loved was The Axeman's Carnival, Catherine Chidgey, and I listened to her speak on the weekend, and just on Friday she won the Acorn Prize at the Ockham Book Awards, or that might have been Thursday night. But it's been a great couple of years for books. My favourite book last year was Lessons in Chemistry.
Oh, I just bought that.
And Still Life was my favourite book from the year before. Yeah. And Sarah Winman, she was out here speaking actually. So I've just got many authors that I, just really love. I don't really have one favourite book of all time. Honestly, I read so much. Yeah. I have favourite books of the year, and then the next year there's favourite books of that year.
That's awesome. Do you consciously think that you choose a book of the year?
Sometimes.
Yeah?
Sometimes my friends and I do say, yeah, that was the best book of this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do little book reviews now on my Instagram to my tiny people. Like,
Right.
it's only a few friends that are on there, and I'm like, I don't care. It's more for me that I can go back
Yeah.
to it, but I rate them out of 5, and I write, and then people will ring me and go, I actually went and got that book, and it was amazing. So, yeah. What is your go-to pick-me-up song?
Well, I still really like the Fleetwood Mac Rumours album.
Yeah.
So any of that, Go Your Own Way, I love that. But I also quite like John Denver, Take Me Home Country Roads. That's just got a lovely, but probably Fleetwood Mac.
Nice.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who might be starting their career today?
Oh, really? If they're young, this is someone who's young, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. You can work for a good boss and learn, a bad boss and learn. You can start doing something and figure it's not you, but then change to something else. Don't sweat the small stuff about what you're studying at university. Don't go to university and get a big debt unless you're pretty sure that you're going to, you're going to get something out of that environment. Don't worry about having to go to university straight from school. Do it. It doesn't matter what choice you make. You're going to learn, and then you can make another choice. So, but on the whole, follow what you enjoy. Like, don't think, well, I should go and do this because I can earn money. Because if you're 20 today, how you're going to support yourself at 50 hasn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
You might be the one inventing it, but it certainly probably doesn't exist in the world at the moment. And even the professions as we know them today will all change. Yeah. They'll all change. So sort of go with what interests you and keep just following your nose about what interests you, and don't worry too much about how you're going to monetize it.
It'll figure itself out. I love that. So what do you do for your mum on Mother's Day?
Well, on Mother's Day, she was actually with my sister in Rotorua, but the week before that, we went to a shop at Waihi Beach Sunday, and I bought her a new perfume that she wanted, so that's what I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
And again, it's that time, right?
Yeah.
What is your favourite quote?
Well, I've got two favourites. The one I said from, I was named after a great saint of the Catholic Church, Theresa of Avila, and my company's called Avila Holdings, and one of her sayings was, "This too shall pass." Yeah. I think it probably was, "Give it over to God, this too shall pass," but this too shall pass. And I think that, when things are really good, you can enjoy it, but you can't bank it. Yeah. And when things are difficult, this too shall pass. So I like that. And the other is because I think it's profound and it's been true in my life, but the other one is a really cheesy one, and I don't even know whether I made it up or I read it somewhere. It's really cheesy. But it's like, rise up and greet the day and it will greet you. Nice. It's like sort of get going, get on with things, and then it's like momentum has its own. Yep. So anyway, I think that's a bit cheesy, but
not at all. And Lynn Twist's book talks about that. Like, we go to bed going, oh, I already haven't had enough this, and then I'm not going to get enough sleep now because I'm going to bed late. So you already start in a deficit. Yeah. But actually choosing to put a line in the sand and going, today's a new day, and bringing the energy, that's awesome. Occasionally I don't sleep well. I generally sleep well, but occasionally I don't. And I have found that it's so easy, because it's horrible if you can't sleep. And you start to worry about the next day. I've really found it. I'm just saying this because a lot of people have problems sleeping. I find Passiflora drops really good. Oh, yeah. Really, they're natural. I find them really good. But reframing my brain, so I say, well, I'll just make a new plan for tomorrow. Yep. Now, I know that's not possible if you've got a 6 a.m. plane to catch, but, okay, well, tomorrow's tomorrow and tomorrow's within my control. Yeah. And I'll just make a new plan. So you're avoiding getting caught up in the anxiety of it, because it is not helpful. No. That is such a great way to look at it. Final question. What qualities do you love about yourself? Gosh, well, I am generous. I'm stimulating. I'm a great company. I've got a really good memory. I'm a very loyal friend. I'm a loyal sister. I'm an interesting person. Yeah. It's always hard to talk about your own good qualities. It's good. And sometimes I sit here in silence just waiting, because I'm not going to let them get off the hook to not answer the question, because There is so much to love, and I don't know you that well, but so just sitting here, that you have amazing qualities, and your leadership is an amazing quality, and the way you include people, and the way you've welcomed us into your home today, and just kindness is amazing.
Thank you. We're great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us in your home today.
Yes.
And I hope that you've enjoyed this kōrero. There are so many takeaways. I just can't even begin to list them all off because there have been so many, but I think the biggest one is use your voice. If I could really drill everything down, if there's an opportunity to help somebody else, to lift someone else, or to put their voice in the room if they're not there, use that opportunity. So thank you so much. And if you've liked this, please share it with your friends and family and let us know what you think, and we'll see you again soon. Ka kite.